Welcome back to the Guides Network here. We're going to do a little deal on frog fishing. What types of frogs, when to throw a frog, what cover you throw a frog in, and why they're eating frogs. Well, people ask me all the time, why do you throw a frog, or what frog do you throw, what color of frog to throw, or what brand of frog to throw. There's no really right or wrong answer to that. If you fish with me in May, you're probably throwing a frog on Lake Fork or any of these lakes we fish. When you ask me what frog to throw, let the frogs that are around the area you're fishing determine what kind of frogs you're throwing. Most people come out to Lake Fork and they buy the biggest frog they can. I think that's a huge mistake. A lot of times when you look at the bank or look what frogs are hanging out in the grass or what frogs the fish are eating, it's actually a smaller frog. It's not the big bull frogs. It's actually a little grass frog that's about that big. So a lot of times you'll see me throw the baby popping frog. You're going to catch just as big a fish on the baby popping frog as you will the bigger frog, I promise you. As far as what color to throw, I always have my customers throwing one dark, one light. This morning we caught all the fish on a brown belly frog, and it's just because of the color of frogs that are out here on the lake we're fishing. A lot of times a white belly frog, a solid white frog. If the frogs are in pads and they're feeding on shad and frogs, I'll throw a white frog. There's two different types of frogs. There's a walking frog and there's a popping frog. My favorite frog is a popping frog, but a walking frog also has its applications as well. The popping frog, the reason I think they eat it is because they're hearing that tunk, 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 tunk. And what that is when you see a frog going across the water, he's not swimming across the water. He's moving 3 or 4 times, stopping, then moving 3 or 4 times again. That's why I like a popping frog. It gives it a little walk to it, and pop. If they're chasing shad up in the pads, then I'll switch over to like a white walking frog, and I could glide that frog through the pads. And sometimes it looks like a shad, sometimes it looks like a frog. You're getting kind of the best of both worlds. So let the frogs in the area that you're fishing really determine what kind of frog that you do fish. Setup that I like to throw a frog on, we have this is a 7-foot 3-inch medium heavy Dobbins. The reason I like a medium heavy is because it gives you the whip to get a frog out there, and you also got the heavy to get them out of the cover that you're fishing. Line I throw is 65-pound braid. All times of year, whenever you're throwing a frog, I always want it on braided line because they are going to get you around stumps, they're going to get you in the grass, they're going to get you in the lily pads. And what that braid does is when a fish hits it, those fish will dig down in those pads. The braided line will actually cut the stems of the pads. A lot of times I see guys come out and they want to frog fish with me and they got a real heavy action rod, but then they're throwing 17-pound fluoro. Well, 17-pound fluoro, number one, it sinks. That's the worst thing you could throw a topwater on. Number two is anytime fluoro hits anything, it chafes it up. So if you catch a 5-pound fish in lily pads, even on 17-pound fluoro, it's a good chance it's going to break. So always use braid. This is a Shimano high-speed reel, and the reason I like a high-speed reel is once you hook a fish up, you can winch him out of the nasty stuff. But that's pretty much on gear. Like I said, let the fish determine what color of frog you throw, and also what kind of frogs are in the area. You know, this time of year the frogs are a little bit bigger on Lake Fork because the bullfrogs have done already had their babies and stuff, and they're getting bigger. But 1st of May, you know, the frogs are going to be pretty small. So that's a tip that I can give you guys on frog fishing that'll help you get more bites. One thing I know this morning we did is we broke a fish off on a frog, and I immediately pulled a brand new one out of the package, tied it on, and had about 3 fish come up, eat it, and didn't get the hooks. When you get these frogs out of the package, their hooks are bent in, and a lot of times you'll have problems with the hook going in the plastic. So you get a fish come up and eat the frog, but you'll see these hooks. You can see right there, this hook was digging into this plastic until I took the pliers and bent it out. So a lot of times what I'll do, which I didn't do this morning, I should have, is as soon as I get a frog out of a package, is I grab that hook. It's a double hook. What I do is I grab that hook with these pliers and bend it out. You can see how it's bending it out away from that plastic. Now you can see a little gap there. So when that fish comes up and clamps down on it, there is no plastic on either side of those hooks. That's a really, really good tip for you guys that just pull a frog out of a package and you're like, man, I'm getting bites on it, but I can't hook them up. You think, oh, I need to wait a little longer. Yes, you do need to wait a little longer, but it's more than likely it's because the hooks are bent in to keep it weedless. So grab a pair of pliers, bend that hook out, and I promise you, you'll get way more hookups. Right now, it's heat of the summer, end of July, coming into August, and we're out here throwing a frog, and you can see this lake right here. It's got stumps all the way up to grass edges. Anytime you find that, when I go around the country fishing tournaments or anything, if I find grass and I find stumps, I automatically go throw a frog. Heat of the summer, the fish are feeding on frogs. You don't have a lot of shad up shallow, more of the shad are out deep. The brim are kind of moving out. So what those bass are feeding on in a lake that's got grass and stumps is frogs. So of course that's the first thing I'm going to go to. Not only is it fun to catch fish on a frog, but that's what the fish are feeding on. Right after the spawn on Lake Fork in May, that's my favorite time to throw a frog on Lake Fork. There's 2 reasons. In May, the big females are still up shallow garden fry. The males are up garden fry. So a lot of times that fry ball is in the thick cover of grass, lily pads, reeds, whatever. If you get a frog on a ball of fry, that fish is going to hit it. No doubt, 100%. So in May, yeah, the water's still a little cooler, but those fish are being real protective. So what we'll do is we'll go on the north end of the lake or any major spawning pocket that's got some hydrilla, or like this year we got all the rain, so the buckbrush was in the water. Well, that's where those fry are. When you have fry, you have fish that are guarding the fry. So what we'll go do is go down the bank, picking apart the reeds, willows, and stuff like that, and trying to get those frogs in the fry. The biggest key to that is you can see the fry up in the bushes. The fry will be popping. You throw a bait in there, you'll see the fry. Okay, well, I guarantee you there's a bass around those fry. So that's kind of why we throw a frog up shallow in May. Right now, obviously, there's no fry out here. The fish are just up in the grass. There's more oxygen in the grass this time of year, so the fish tend to go up in the grass. Bait fish go to the grass. Frogs are in the grass. The bass are going to be in the grass. So that's 2 different techniques. A lot of times, also, some good areas, if you're breaking down an area that you want to fish a frog in, go to the deepest cover you can. You know, you may have a creek like this on Lake Fork or here that one side of it's real shallow. It's a shallow flat, 3 foot all the way up to the bank, you know, 75 yards off the bank. But you go right across the area and it's 8 foot, 8 foot, 8 foot, and then right next to the bank it gets 2 foot. Well, those bigger fish are going to be hanging next to that deeper water. Yeah, they're still going to be up in the bushes guarding fry, but the bigger fish will always be next to that deeper water. So That's a key also when finding, where do I fish a frog in a major creek on Lake Fork, or a lake that you have, or a pond you have. Anytime you find the deeper water where there is grass, that's where most of the fish are going to be. All bass in the summer, they like deep water, but they get up in that grass for the oxygen and the bait fish. So that's the breakdown of kind of when we fish a frog and where we fish a frog. Now what I'll do is I'll get on the front deck, we'll throw a frog around, and I'll show you the different ways to fish a frog in different areas. So what I'll do is when I make a cast, I let that frog sit for a second. What that does, it lets the ripples get away. I see a lot of people just start working the frog back real fast. Yes, there are some frogs move like that, but what a normal frog will do is it'll come down, it'll move about 4 times and stop. Look around, move about 4 times and stop. Look around. I see a lot of people just start working the frog back. Yeah, will that get you bites? Yes, it aggravates fish. But to get more bites, what I would do is pop that frog about 4 times, let it stop. Pop it about another 4 times, let it stop. Also, if you're fishing a frog, a glide frog, what I like to do is just keep it moving. It'll dart back and forth. So if you just keep a frog moving, big thing is let it stop though. That frog, if you ever see a frog going across the water, he will always pause and look around. So move that thing about 4 times, let it set. Pop it, stop it. Pop it, stop it. Pop it, stop it. You can see that looks like a frog coming off the bank. This rod tip, see how much that tip's moving? It's barely moving, and look what that frog's doing. That's exactly what a frog looks like coming across the water. I see a lot of people pull it like that. A frog does not move like that across the water. So if you throw that frog out there and just barely move that rod tip, I mean to where it's just barely moving, almost like you're working a spook, then let it pause. Move it, let it pause. Move it, let it pause. That looks like a real frog that is trying to get away from the bank, find a stump, find a log to get on, and that's what those fish key on. Also, you see that frog's got a concave mouth, so what that is doing is it's spitting water out the front, almost like a yellow magic or a topwater would. So that's a good way to show you why you use a popping frog. It kind of moves a little water more than a glide frog does. But the biggest key is on how you work it. I see a lot of my customers, they're not catching fish. I'll pick up a rod, throw a frog a couple times and catch one. They're like, how'd you do that? Well, it's the way I'm working the frog. You're throwing the same frog as me, but I'm making that frog look as real as possible by throwing it out there, moving it about 4 times and letting it stop. Moving it about 4 times and letting it stop. And you get that from watching frogs come off the bank. So if you guys do that, I promise you'll get more bites on a frog, and you'll just see your hookup and bass ratio go way up when you're fishing a frog.
Good fish to start the morning right there, Han.
Yeah. Did she choke it or did she choke it?
He gone.
Boy, he ate it.
That's a pretty fish.
Old pond fish.
It has been a pretty good morning.
Boy. That's a pretty good, man.
Hughes. Oh, God, he's got to eat.
That's how you want them. Big old summertime fish, big head. What are they, eating it?
Goodness gracious. Man, thank you for bringing me out here. We've had a blast already. We 10 minutes into it. There you go. Learning from one of the best. Zach, thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming on here and talking to us about how you do it. That's what's beautiful about fishing. That's what's beautiful about the Guides Network is we all have our own little tweaks. For the most part, we're doing the same thing with the frog, and there's a couple of things I do different, a couple of things you do different that we just learn over the years. And, boy, these viewers, they get to watch these videos consume all that, throw a little tweak here, a little tweak there of their own, and I think it's really going to help them if they're really, paying close attention to it. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Everybody likes fishing a frog. If you don't like fishing a frog,
you don't like bass fishing.
You've never seen a blow up, you don't like bass fishing, and your heart may not be beating. And I promise you, if you guys throw a frog in lakes that got a little vegetation, stumps, grass, whatever, a largemouth bass will eat a frog almost before it'll eat anything.
Yep. Well, good job, man. Great job breaking it all the way down. We hope you guys enjoy that. You only get that here on the Guides Network. We give away all the details. We go more in depth than anybody else is willing to with all the trade secrets. It has taken years. A lot of sweat, a lot of hooks in your hands, a lot of nicks, cuts, sore backs, to earn these secrets. And here we are giving them away for free. We must be crazy. But it's a good time. We love bass fishing. We want all you guys to catch more fish every time you go. That's what it's all about. And we really appreciate you watching and helping us build a community, a fishing community that's all about helping each other find the next bite. So thanks to Zach. Thanks to y'all. Be sure and check Zach's links out below. If you want to book a trip with him, get with him. He's one of the most entertaining, laid-back, good-time, fish-catching fools I've ever met in my life. So give this man a call. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time right here on Your Lake Fork Guide.